gets worse and worse.
Hour number 2 of the broadcast. Mike Wimmacher with you here on this Friday, March 8th, joined by Johnny Molson. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mike Wimmacher.
I always appreciate you stopping by. I know the listeners do as well. They tire of my voice by this point of the week. 217-629-7970, the phone number to join the conversation. Coming up this hour, we will have a very interesting debate here. This guy who's a really big radio nerd sent out a list of songs from 1983 and pitted them against songs from 1984.
Okay.
And he asked a panel of experts to choose which was the bigger hit. Then he kind of took it to the online community as well to vote in the matchups. And so we'll get into it because there's some interesting ones. One of them is Love is a Battlefield versus Rockwell's Somebody's Watching Me.
Man.
So there's some bangers in there.
Don't make me choose.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we'll kind of take people's votes live here on the air and get our kind of thoughts on those as well. Also, to end the hour, I sent you a GIF last night in our conversation back and forth.
We do that sometimes.
Yeah,
We send
exactly.
gifts to each other.
Yes, exactly. And
we have that kind of a relationship.
we really do. We're like the kids nowadays. We don't speak. We just send gifts and we know what we mean. And it was one of Benny Hill, which got me thinking, why did Benny Hill feel so verboten and ooh, I shouldn't be watching that when I was a child? So we'll get into that conversation as well. But begin this hour, we've talked about it before, idiots who make the bomb joke at airports.
It's amazing that this happens.
Yeah, let me introduce you to 70-year-old Alan Berinsky.
Old enough to know better.
Yeah, Alan Berinsky was at the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport. All right. And he was sitting at gate G11 in Terminal 4 when two witnesses overheard him tell another passenger something like, quote, "If the bomb in my bag goes off prematurely, I apologize to your family in advance."
What?
Now, I'm not quite sure what he meant by, "If the bomb in my bag goes off prematurely, I apologize to your family in advance." Apparently, the two witnesses became alarmed and reported his comments to police. Berinsky then says he was just trying to be funny, and the reason why he said it was he was trying to flirt with another traveler. What
Look,
in the hell?
I'm not very good at flirting, but I know not to do that.
What in the hell is he trying to do? I understand we said that person immediately goes to jail because it's bad humor, but this is not only just bad humor. How is this flirting? What to what end? What was he trying to accomplish here in flirting with a fellow passenger by saying, "If the bomb goes off in my bag prematurely, I apologize to your family in advance"?
Well, I'm just trying to take this to its natural conclusion. Is the woman supposed to go, "Oh my gosh, you're so funny," and then strike up a relationship?
I assumed she's supposed to laugh at that terrible attempt at humor.
Yeah.
And then please tell me more.
Man, I've been in airports.
What are you doing, Berinsky?
Yeah. I've been in airports where people have walked away from their bags. And, they may have done one of these things like, "Hey, would you watch this thing while I go grab a donut?" Which is fine. But sometimes, people move and things get confused. And you sit there and goes, "There's just a bag sitting there." And I've seen, the security people come flying in.
That's what happened at the Orlando International Airport. Did you see that a couple weeks ago? Where they cleared out an entire terminal. Terminal B was cleared out because someone's two bags just sat they forgot their bags or they left them behind or whatever it may be, and people just freaked out.
Yeah, I was at an airport once, and these, when the real deal TSA come in, and they're all, jacked with their guns and bulletproof vest, and they've got a dog and the whole thing. Not the people that check you through.
Yeah, not those people.
But this battalion comes marching down. It's like, oh my God, what's going on here? And they single out this guy and just surround him. I was like, oh my God. Well, what had happened was he went to the bathroom, and he put his iPad up on the shelf, goes to the bathroom, walks away from his iPad.
Oh, God. So they think that's some type of detonator. There's some type of detonator device?
And this poor SOB.
Oh, no.
I mean, the entire battalion of TSA people descended on him.
Let me ask you this, though, when we're getting back to Berinsky.
Sure.
Is the airport a place to flirt? Isn't an airport much like a bathroom, something where you just go to get from point A to point B? Is it really somewhere where you need to work on your game?
Yeah, I don't know. I know one couple who they met sitting, waiting for it. They were at a layover, and they just struck a conversation, and things happen. But boy, the stars really have to align for that to work, right?
Yeah, I think it's okay to have conversation, but to work game at an airport, right. I think just if it happens organically, right, and you're there and you're sitting next to each other or whatever it may be, that's one thing. But when you're working your material from a Friday night out at the bar, I don't know if that's what you need to be doing, because everybody, depending, I guess, what time of day, but for the most part, when people choose to fly, they're flying in comfortable clothes, right? The amount of just sweatshirts and just yoga pants and sweatpants, it's not the place, I think, to try to work game or work on your material to be like, well, this is like, ladies' night on a Wednesday. I'm going to work, at the Chili's or whatever. I'm going to work my A material here.
So what happened to the
guy? He ended up getting arrested, and he was charged with making a false bomb report, a second-degree felony. And also, he should have to be marked down on any dating site he's ever going on ever again.
He's not funny.
Right, exactly. He's not funny. He's arrestable for his lack of humor and lack of game. So just don't do it, Barinsky. Don't be a Barinsky.
No.
At the end of the day,
here's your bumper sticker for
exactly. Don't be a Barinsky. It is Mike Wimacher and Johnny Molson with you here on this Friday morning, March 8th.
Baby.
That's right. He's not, unfortunately, no Bootsy Collins in these battles between 1983 and 1984 songs. It's hard to believe, 84 is now 40 years ago? Yep. Good Lord. But this individual who's kind of a radio wonk went through and took hits of 1983 and hits of 1984 and kind of put them together in a head-to-head battle and cage match. And then he sent it to other radio insiders and then took it to the public.
Okay.
There could only be one. Right. You only get one song. So I will give you the matchups in 217-629-7970 if you would like to chime in on any of these.
This is an interesting pair of years, too, because MTV has really caught its stride by now.
Correct.
It's now 3-4 years old. But also, Top 40 radio was very strong here. So you've got this double whammy of these hits coming at you.
And it's hard to believe some of these songs you go, oh, wait a second. So I will give you the 1983 song first.
Okay.
And then the 1984 song. That's the way it'd always be. Mm-hmm. And then they already have the winners chosen. But we'll get your opinion, and if the people want to call in any of these as well, 217-629-7970. The first matchup that he sent to people was Elton John's I'm Still Standing versus Wham's Wake Me Up Before You Go Go.
I'm going to have to go with Elton John.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Wake Me Up Before You Go Go is a blast of a song, but I tire of it quickly.
It does.
It's something that, if it pops on once every 3 years, it's like, oh, this is fun. And then it's like, this is a little much.
And I read a thing, too, where the jitterbug start of it was because that, I guess, George Michael's grandmother was big fan of big band, and he wanted some allusion to that or whatever. That's why jitterbug starts that song.
By the way, never knew he was gay. I completely missed George Michael being gay.
Well, because everybody's mom of that time was just like, when he did the Faith stuff later on in his career, people were just like, oh my God, like the women.
He had women pawing all over him.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly.
You
never realized.
Completely missed he was gay.
And then
the signs were there.
You look at it now. Yes.
But had no idea.
No idea. You totally missed on that
Freddie Mercury? Didn't know.
No. So in this particular matchup, the actual public voted for Wake Me Up Before You Go Go.
Okay.
They said that somebody said this was the most difficult one. Both have been resurgent in radio in recent years, but they ended up going with Wake Me Up Before You Go Go because it's just a little bit more of an earworm.
0 for 1.
Yeah. Next up was the Motels. Here's a couple from 1983, Suddenly Last Summer versus Corey Hart's Sunglasses at Night.
Oh, I got to go Motels on that one.
They went Corey Hart. Yeah, because of more of the novelty.
Yeah.
Here's one that's really weird. Like, I guess I didn't realize that that John Lennon was still, I sometimes forget because as a kid, my parents liked the Beatles, but they didn't really get into the solo stuff. That in 1984, he was still releasing stuff because
posthumously,
because it was Donna Summer's "She Works Hard for the Money" versus John Lennon's "Nobody Told Me."
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to be wrong again, but I'm going with Lennon.
Yeah, Donna Summer in that one.
Wins.
Yeah. 217-629-7970. We're doing 1983 songs versus 1984. This was a guy who set all these up. And so far,
these are tough, man. These are some Sophie's Choice here, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
It's not that I like one over the other, but I feel like that's the one that I would choose.
Here's Def Leppard's Rock of Ages.
Okay.
Remember, we're saying the 1983 song first and all these. Versus John Mellencamp's Authority song. And here's the crazy part about this. Both those artists, still to this day,
yeah, that's a good point.
Touring.
Yeah.
40 years down the road.
Yeah, that's a good
point.
Both
of them still around. In fact, isn't Mellencamp coming here to Springfield at some point?
I think so, yeah.
So just wrap your head around that for a moment.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But Def Leppard, Rock of Ages versus Mellencamp, Authority song. Because let's face facts, right? Mellencamp and both Def Leppard have had some stinkers in their careers.
Sure.
They're not all big hits.
Yeah, and I don't particularly like
Authority song?
No.
Rock of
Ages.
Yeah, it's not Def Leppard's strongest one.
No.
So I would lean Mellencamp Authority song in this, but and that's what the experts ended up choosing as well. Whew. Here is a really interesting snapshot of that time frame when he puts the Stray Cats and Stray Cat Strut versus the Cars You Might Think. Talk about opposite ends of the spectrum of the rockabilly kind of in vogue there with the Stray Cats and the synth kind of driven Cars You Might Think. Now, to your point when we started this about how permeating MTV was at the time, the Cars You Might Think music video was groundbreaking. It won every. I remember that's the first memory I have of watching a Video Music Awards. Was every category was here's the Cars, the car, everyone they won because of You Might Think of him being a fly flying around, and you look at it now, you're like, God, that was terrible.
Yeah,
but at the time you were like, oh, groundbreaking.
Right. Man, I don't know if I can pick one.
They're both really good.
I mean, yeah, nothing wrong with either of those songs.
I would probably, if it was Rock This Town, I would lean more Stray Cats. Stray Cat Strut goes a little too slow for me at times.
Really?
Yeah.
I think that's a groovy one.
It is a groovy one.
I'm going Stray Cats. Are you going
I'm going
Cars?
the Cars.
Okay.
Because here's the other part of the Cars. For a gentleman like myself who's nerdy and wears glasses, he was an icon because Rick Ocasek got Paulina Poroskova. It allowed me to aim high.
Look, Rick Ocasek makes us all look like studs.
It's very true. But he still got Paulina Poroskova.
Yeah.
So he
can play a guitar.
That's right.
God, women are stupid sometimes. Oh, he can play a guitar.
As if men aren't either.
Well, no,
believe
me, I know. But we've all fallen victim to that. It's like, really? Well, he plays the guitar. Oh, come on.
Well, look at John Mayer. He looks like looks like he's backed up and hasn't taken one in a week when he does a solo. Next one up was John Mellencamp again, but from 1983, Crumbling Down versus. Here's one. Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson, Say.
Yeah, Mellencamp gets this one.
They went with Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson.
Really?
Those music videos were weird, weren't they? With those two together, it was just weird.
Yeah, they were clowns or something in a traveling
exactly.
show.
Right. And they're trying to fleece people out of money. This one I don't know about. All right, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, You Got Lucky.
Okay.
Versus Ray Parker Jr.'s Ghostbusters. Part of me goes, got to be Tom Petty, right?
Yeah.
But you can't deny.
Yeah, you can't.
Just how permeating.
Yeah.
To this day, 40. Sure. I mean, they got a new Ghostbusters movie coming out in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Guess what's going to be played in that movie, and everyone's going to know the words to.
And there's no chance if you walk into any downtown street and just utter the words, who you going to call, somebody's going to respond, Ghostbusters. I mean, there's no other way around it.
Yeah. And so I would say Ray Parker Jr. Ghostbusters, but the experts say Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, You Got Lucky.
That's a good song.
Petty, talk about some guys who have we said Def Leppard and Mellencamp don't really always have the biggest. Petty, for the most part, was pretty damn good.
He didn't miss, yeah.
He didn't miss much.
Yeah.
No. Even later, Tom Petty.
Oh, yeah.
The one, I think it's the one that's really underrated. He wrote She's the One, I think it is. It was a movie by Ed Burns, and he did the entire soundtrack for it. Really underrated Petty album. Let's see. Here's Joe Jackson Steppin' Out versus Kenny Loggins' Footloose.
I'm a big Joe Jackson fan.
He's really underrated, I think, when it comes down to it.
Cool. And that was a good album. That was a very good album. So I instinctively say Joe Jackson.
Yeah, they go Kenny Loggins. Yeah, with Footloose.
Yeah, arguably the bigger of the two hits.
Yeah. Here's one with, once again, I didn't realize how big Mellencamp was in 83 and 84. Because in this one, it's from 1983, Bryan Adams, Straight from the Heart, versus John Mellencamp's Pink Houses.
Pink Houses.
Yeah.
Come on.
Is Bryan Adams overrated?
I've never. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of a Bryan Adams song that I enjoy.
Cut Like a Knife?
No.
Everything I do it for you. Summer of 69? That's been co-opted, hasn't it, though?
I guess. I mean, it's just...
Because of the connotation, right?
Well, maybe.
Yeah. Here's Big Country in a Big Country versus Billy Joel's An Innocent Man. You got to go Billy Joel, right?
Do you?
They went Big Country.
I'm going Big Country as well.
Okay.
I'm going Big Country as well.
Okay.
That's not Innocent Man. That's not one of Billy Joel's.
No, that's not. Have I ever told you the greatest Big Country story ever told?
I've got a Big Country story, so you go ahead.
Okay. So I had a friend who went to go see them. Right, and when they were like at a big reunion tour in the 80s, were making a big comeback. This is like the late 90s, early 2000s. And so he's like, I'm in the front row. I'm wearing all my 80s stuff, and I got my crazy glasses, and Big Country finally hits the stage, and they come out, and they do their first song, and everyone's cheering, and I'm yelling for them. And the lead singer's like, oh, my God, we love the response. Thank you so much. I would love to have sex with everyone here except for you. And he points
at you?
No, he points at my friend and says, he's like, why was I singled out? I was in my best 80s garb. Did he not like my glasses? My friend was very offended that he wanted to have sex with everybody but my friend that night. What's your Big Country?
First job I ever had in radio, I was working on the morning show with someone, and the host is talking about Hey, We're the Monkees by the Monkees.
Okay.
He said, well, how often do you hear a band with a song that's also the name of the band? And somebody else in the room says, well, what about Big Country by Big Country? And the host says, but Big Country? Nobody likes that. That's ridiculous. Nobody listens to that band. Some caller called in and was beside himself of how dare you besmirch Big Country? That band was like, okay, name 2 more songs by them.
You can't.
No.
A couple more here. Love is a Battlefield from Pat Benatar versus Rockwell's Somebody's Watching Me.
Oh, Benatar. Come on, please.
Yeah.
It's got to be Benatar.
Yes, it's Benatar. Then you got, here's one, Bonnie Tyler's we're going to end with this one because this is the most ridiculous matchup. Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart versus Quiet Riot's Mental Health, Bang Your Head. Talk about two opposite ends of the spectrum there.
Oh, man.
Neither song great. Can we admit that? Neither song great.
No, but Bonnie Tyler, boy, that's a guilty pleasure.
It is.
If you're alone in the car, you're singing along with that.
You belt that thing out, don't you?
You do.
Yeah.
And everyone listening does. And don't say you don't.
No, yeah. Oh, I'm above that. No, you're not. Yeah. No. Gives you, Once upon a time,
won?
It was Bonnie Tyler.
Yeah, all right.
Told nothing I can do. And then, it's going to be, that's another song going to be played a ton next month.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Everybody, every time there's a Total Eclipse, you got to play the Bonnie Tyler. Yeah. So there you go. An interesting snapshot there of 1983 and 1984.
Good stuff.
Didn't realize some of those artists. I guess I didn't realize just how that was kind of the wheelhouse for Mellencamp at that time.
Yeah, it was his prime.
It is Mike Wimmacher, Johnny Molson with you here on WMAY. It is Mike Wimmacher and Johnny Molson with you here on WMAY on this Friday, March 8th. I originally said this was going to be embarrassing kids story, but I think it should be embarrassing flatulence stories. Right. We all have one of those. 217-629-7970 is the number to call in. Because actor Sam Neill, you know him from the Jurassic Park movies, he was on the Today Show earlier this week, and basically called out his son. He said, basically, there was a royal premiere in London, and it was a fortuitous occasion. He said, you don't get to sit beside Princess Diana every day. So he's sitting there. But my son was sitting on the other side of me, and it was kind of unfortunate because once it starts getting excited about 45 minutes in, he was so carried away with things, he was about 10 at this point, that he started to fart unreasonably. So the kid apparently got so excited, he started to toot. Neil said the toots weren't loud, but they were otherwise very noticeable. He says, it wasn't that audible, but it was very, very smelly. There was sort of a draft through the cinema, and it was all drifting in the princess's direction. Mm-hmm. And I was there in my suit and bow tie, sweating like crazy because I thought, the princess is going to think this is me. Yeah. And it's this little boy here as well. He said, but like a good dad, he didn't rat out his son. He's like, I couldn't at that time say, that, you know what, princess, not me. It's my kid letting him rip. But he hates telling me the story, but it's absolutely true that my kid just let him rip. He says he's grown now, but I'm never going to another premiere with him because of that particular situation. So 217-629-7970, we all have that. It's something that happens in life where it just does. It's you can't control it sometimes. It happens and it's embarrassing, yes, but it happens to all of us. Yeah, especially when you start laughing unexpectedly. You know, something you find funny and it just goes out both ends. Well, I'll be first to share mine. And 217-629-7970 is the phone number. When back in the day we used to cover Glenwood basketball, all right? And so you have headphones on when you're doing the game. It gets to halftime. And so I'm listening to get the rejoin before we start doing kind of the halftime wrap up, and it's bubbling up. Okay. And so I assume that it may be silent because I have the headphones on. Oh. So but there's people sitting in front of press row there, kind of in front of where we're broadcasting from. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to let it squeeze out. I'm sure it'll be okay. The look on four people's faces, like they look back, like grossed out. Apparently, it wasn't. I couldn't tell because I have headphones on. It wasn't as silent as I thought it was going to be. Just a big trumpet. Yeah, exactly. That's what transpired. Wow. And it's like it's embarrassing at the time, but it's something that happens to everybody, right? Yeah, I'm one who like clenches up, and so you get that weird bubble in the stomach that goes. That's almost more embarrassing than the actual gas, isn't it? I guess I don't know. Without the aroma. Yeah. I guess there's that. My dad was always. I was so embarrassed by my dad a lot of times because you would be in a store or in a public place. Mostly, a lot of times it'd be like in the mall. Remember when you used to go as a family to the mall? Mm-hmm. That was like that was an outing. Back in the black and white days. Yeah, exactly. And you could my dad's tell was, well, we should probably go to a different section. And you knew at that point that he had just dropped a bomb on people. Right. And then he would then be like, we have to walk away. See, and that's the risk is you never know the aroma content. Correct. Sometimes it's just nominal. Yes. And sometimes it's just raw eggs, rotten eggs. Yeah, 217-629-7970. Have you ever had a situation like, Sam Neill's son, where you just have to kind of own it. You don't expect it, but you just kind of. I always try my best in public places to not. Like, to your point, you are a nice, kind individual. I try. And you hold it in and are willing to have the backup of the rather than letting it go. I will destroy my insides before and you shouldn't. Before I risk your outsides. And you shouldn't. They've done the science that you shouldn't let it go, but it's just, I don't know why you shouldn't hold it in? Is that the science? Yeah, the science is you should not hold it in. What happens? You just got to, because it's like it backs up and everything else. You got to give me a better reason than that. And you know what? I wish I would have realized that you were going to ask that follow-up. I should have been more prepared because there's an article like 6 reasons why you shouldn't hold it in. Okay. Hi, you're on WMAY. Hey, guys. So I was at the Springfield Mile. It's probably 5-10 years ago. I'm going through the tunnel. Goes underneath the track there. Mm-hmm. And I'm following Willie G. Davison, the owner of Harley Davidson. Oh, wow. And
Yeah. Well, he crop dusted me.
Oh, no.
Just revved up right there.
Like, here, check this out.
So anyway.
Did you call him out on it?
That's all I got.
Okay. You should have called him out.
Appreciate the phone call. Yeah,
I would have run ahead of him in the tunnel and said, "He did it!
It's him! It's him!"
Wow.
Yeah. If we're going crop dusting stories, I famously have shared this before. At Disney, you were standing in a line outside, right? And I'm on my honeymoon, and you don't want to do that in front of your new bride. But I've been holding it in, and so she starts walking ahead of me. In line for the Buzz Lightyear, and I look behind me, and it looks like there's a gap. And so I'm like, well...
You think you have a good drop zone there?
Yeah, I thought I had a good drop zone, so thankfully, no sound, but I don't know what the leftover residuals were. Mm-hmm. But I turn around, and there was like a 4-year-old who was directly behind me.
Right, got him right in the face.
Got it right in his face. And the minute after I let it go, a cast member saw the button we were wearing on our honeymoon. He goes, "I'm going to give you a magical moment." And he takes us to the front of the line. So we immediately evacuate that situation. And I'm like, I just got rewarded for, front of the line for crop dusting a 4-year-old.
I thought you were going to say the cast member came in and gave you a big hug, and it just made it worse. As more and more came out.
Right, exactly. Even more, yeah. So it happens. They're always going to be funny. It's embarrassing, yes, but it happens to the best of us, including Sam Neill and his son. Whenever I hear this, I always feel like I'm doing something wrong for some reason.
I feel like you got to chase your wife around the house and see if you can rip her dress.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
It just... because last night, when I sent that to you, the text of the Benny Hill gif, it just made me realize, I don't know what it was as a kid, when that show was on, it just felt scandalous that you were watching it.
Yeah, and it did. And you saw that the very beginning, the Thames Productions, that thing would come on. And you go, oh, man, Mom's going to come in and make me shut this off.
Or give Dad just give Dad just not even have to say anything, just give Dad a look.
Yeah.
Of what are you doing watching that with our son of that age?
Yeah.
And why was that? At 217-629. I mean, I understand, I guess, the various degrees of undress the women would be in.
Well, yeah, it was how I learned at a very young age to always look at cleavage, because that's always what he was doing. He was looking at cleavage, but then he always had this weird look of I'm afraid of it. Right? I mean, it was he didn't want to. I could never quite figure out what was going on there.
And I understand, but also I would get sometimes lost the comedy of it all, right? I mean, it was just so slapstick and vaudevillian of this old little guy would come in and he would just smack him on the top of the head over and over, and you would laugh and laugh and laugh. I just never. I guess I never understood. As a kid, you just found it funny because this guy's slapping this other guy, but I don't know what the allure was for adults.
Well, I'm trying to remember, was there ever any dialogue?
There was.
I mean, I guess there was. I guess there were sketches and things.
Yeah.
But I think the only thing we remember is yakety sax.
and him running around chasing different people.
And somehow a woman would be out in public in a bustier, and she shouldn't be, and everybody's eyes would bug out.
It is Mike and Molson with you here on WMAY, 217-629-7970. Your memories of Benny, because I look back at it now. If you watch clips now, you go, Why was everybody just so because it was like a badge of honor, I guess. When you would go to school on that Monday, because usually
might have had something to do with the objectification of women. I don't know. Maybe it was that.
I think it probably was that. But it just looking back on it now, it was just you wore it as a badge of honor as a kid of you know what I got to watch with Dad?
Yeah.
What? Benny Hill. You got to watch Benny Hill.
It was like finding your dad's Playboy or something.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And just the look the mom would get. My mom didn't even say anything. She just kind of gave that look, the mom look. We all have gotten that at some point. And my dad would just be just deal with it.
My grandfather was very hard. My memory is, my grandfather is very hard of hearing. And so any physical comedy on TV, he absolutely loved.
Okay.
And so if it was the Stooges or whatever, And so he would just sit there and laugh his ass off while my grandmother would just shake her head. And, I'm sitting between them going, well, am I supposed to be watching this? Yeah, and you're right. It's one of those, and it is definitely one of those things that only made sense in its time.
Correct.
There's no place for that now. I don't even know it made place. You're right.
I don't even know if it made sense in its time. It
probably didn't.
It just was. I guess just the just ridiculousness of it all that I found hilarious. But I don't know, looking back, what the allure was, sans the scantily clad woman, of why my dad tuned into it in the first place.
I think it's such an interesting comedy study, too, because you look at British comedy, and there's some very erudite, Peter Sellers kind of, high-level, thinking, dry humor that they all love and they laugh at. And then there's that. And that they're laughing at just as hard too, and it's like, how do you put these two in the same bowl of soup?
I mean, would you? To your point, you talk about physical comedy with your grandfather. Was Benny Hill kind of their version of the Three Stooges? Maybe.
Well, yeah. I mean, every episode involves somebody carrying a 2x4 and turning too soon and hitting someone on the head with it.
Right.
And then a scantily clad woman
would show up. Yeah, exactly. Whoa. Yeah, exactly. And it was kind of like almost, Scooby-Doo had their chase scenes, and that's kind of like what Benny Hill was doing in real life, because then they kind of would speed it up, and every episode ended with the same chase scene.
Yeah. And, I mean, nobody mastered that look to the camera of, I just saw breasts,
Quite like Benny Hill.
And I think it's the look we all get. We're all guilty of it.
You're not wrong. I think even John Krasinski,
right,
from The Office.
Yes.
I think he patterned that look to the camera after Benny Hill. Hamburger. Good old Hamburger Jones. Hamburger indeed. It is Mike and Molson with you here on WMAY on this Friday morning, March 8th.
Well, that was boring.
Yeah. But, hey, we try to be an oasis in a desert of politics, but every once in a while, somebody scheduled a guest. I didn't know what it was, even though I've lived here forever.
A leak in the pipes.
Yeah, exactly. And I've lived here, long enough to know better, but I thought, Lincoln Day dinner, that's going to be about Lincoln. But whatever, that's neither here nor there. We move on, onward and upward. This was an interesting list in the fact that it is the top 25 strangest movies we've ever watched. And so I want to hear from you at 217-629-7970. If there's been a movie where you just go, I'm not quite sure what I just watched.
Right.
Where it seems interesting, but at the end of it, you're somewhat confused. So they go in like chronological order, and we'll hit some of these. It's not like ranked weirdest or whatever. It just starts in chronological order. And it starts with the Monkees movie Head.
Oh, man. That is an awful movie.
I never saw, I was a big fan of the Monkees growing up, but I had no idea until I was older that they actually had made a movie, and it was as bad as everyone said. Wasn't Jack Nicholson in that thing,
He was involved in that somehow, and I can't remember what the context was. I thought he was like a writer or something. Anyway, it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. And, the only thing you can compare it to is I think it came out right after the Beatles' Magical Mystery Tour.
Okay.
They did like a 1-hour movie on BBC or something, and that's weird and strange.
Yeah, right.
And so they had to weird and strange on top of it, and it was just like, come on, Monkees.
By the way, Beatles.
Go pretend to play your instrument somewhere else.
I don't mean Beatles. Monkees. Mickey Dolenz, 79 years old today.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
He's the only one left, right? Everyone's dead.
Yeah. Did Torque die?
Oh, yeah, Torque died a few years ago.
Okay, yeah. And
Smith last year, I think.
Smith, yeah. And Davy Jones. The only one is, ladies and gentlemen, the Monkees. And it's just Mickey Dolenz singing Last Train to Clarksville. That's all it is.
That's sad.
I don't know if I would agree with this particular movie being in the strangest we've ever seen, but they put the original Psycho in there. And I guess it was odd in the fact that the way it all played out and shot and Hitchcock, but I don't know if that's a strange movie per se. It's one that obviously set the standards for horror and kind of the bait and switch at the end, but I don't know if I put that as a strange movie.
Yeah, I don't think it's. Yeah, I don't know that it's strange. It's vintage Hitchcock, and it's sort of the crime happens in reverse. The crime happens right at the beginning,
right,
and then the rest of it is trying to figure out how the crime happened. And so it messes with your head.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, I guess 217-629-7970. Strange movies that you've seen. I will say, the strangest movie I ever saw that I actually enjoyed, because there's some movies you watch that are just strange for strange sake, and you don't really get anything out of it. But the strangest movie I ever saw that I enjoyed, it's a Johnny Depp film shot in black and white, and it's a Western called Dead Man.
I don't know this one.
It is really, really bizarre.
Yeah.
It's kind of a fish out of water where he's people think he's a gunman, but he's not a gunman, and he's trying to escape, and it's all black and white, and it's got these trippy scenes and everything else. I really enjoyed the film, but when I try to show it to someone, if you're not like a Johnny Depp fan, you just go, I don't know what they're trying to do here. It's a bit of a mess.
There was a film we were shown in high school called Koyaanisqatsi.
Say that again?
Koyaanisqatsi.
Okay.
And the music is by Philip Glass. And if you know Philip Glass's music, it's very repetitive. So it's like 90 minutes of that.
Oh, God.
With all this imagery. Koyaanisqatsi is like a Hopi Indian term that means life out of balance. And so it's this, you see nature, and then you see bulldozers come in, and it's just up and down and left
How
and right.
long was this film?
It's like 90. It's like a good 90 minutes of... And they showed it to us in high school. And so, yeah, it's always stuck with me. I enjoy it. It's really artfully done.
Okay.
But you also kind of have to be in a mood. You got to be ready for it.
I think that's one of the kind of criteria when they go through this list. And 217-629-7970, strangest movie you ever saw. Planet of the Apes they put on this list.
Okay.
And I get that. As a kid, I watched that on WGN, like on a Saturday afternoon, and I was really intrigued.
Yeah.
But I didn't quite grasp the concept. I was just like, oh, these monkeys are talking. This is funny to me.
Yeah. Everybody wants a talking monkey.
Right. And it wasn't until I got older when I was like, oh, this was kind of allegorical, and there was a big twist ending at the end.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. I mean, I think I think we think of these movies, especially something as iconic as Planet of the Apes. You think of it in segments and sections, moments that you always know. Of course, the big climax at the end, but also, keep your paws off me.
You damn dirty, yeah.
And all these other things. But when you watch it in its entirety, you go, yeah, there's a lot of strange stuff going on here.
There really is. Wicker Man also makes this list. I have never... Now... They don't say which Wicker Man. They do, I should say. They say the original, because Nicolas Cage made a remake of that. And if anyone's going to be in Wicker Man and make it weirder, it's Nicolas Cage.
And you know what? If you are in a mood to watch something weird, you can usually look for a Nick Cage movie.
I would say, what's the weirdest Nick Cage movie you ever seen?
Weirdest.
Because there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah. I mean, I like Raising Arizona. I think it's funny and fun. The one that just came out a couple of years ago, The Unbearable Weight of...
Oh, God, yeah.
Extraordinary Talent, I think it was called.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good and so weird. So weird.
There's one that looks like it's coming out soon, I think, to streaming. That looks really strange. It could make this list. The Dream Scenario. Have you seen that?
Right.
Where he plays this unassuming guy who just shows up in people's dreams and he becomes a celebrity, but yet then a dream, he kills somebody in a dream, but he didn't do. So it seems just utterly bizarre, and it's just quintessential Nick Cage. The other one is a movie called Willy's Wonderland, which is basically kind of like Five Nights at Freddy's.
Okay.
But he plays a character called the Drifter that doesn't have any dialogue.
Huh.
And he just downs these sodas, and he kills these animatronics. It's so bizarre, but it's kind of funny because it's Nick Cage. 217-629-7970. What's the strangest movie you've seen? Hi, you're on WMAY.
Morning, gentlemen. So
Morning.
I never thought Planet of the Apes was all that strange, to be honest. But coming from a sci-fi guy, it is what it is. I do think the newer Planet of the Apes are actually stranger than the original one.
I have not seen the new ones, but I've heard good things about them.
I've heard good things as well. They got a new one coming out later this summer.
Yeah.
I can't argue that they are good, but I just feel that they're a little more out there compared to the other one. But for me, who doesn't believe that Moses was, bad-mouthing apes
right.
in the original one? I mean,
true.
that was the big thing there. It's like, let my people go, get your hands off me. All the other stuff.
What was one of the later Planet of the Apes, like the surface of the Planet of the Apes? I mean, there was one after they had done like 3 or 4, and it just got real low budget and real sloppy.
And they really tried to go backwards with it. To be honest, it was like, here's what 3 should be. I mean, they went full Star Wars with it. Yeah. To be honest, it was like, look, we're giving you 4, 5, and 6. Now we're going to do 1, 2, 3, and later here comes the other 7.
And it was like monkey costumes from Spirit Halloween.
Yeah,
it just really got bad toward the end of the run.
And in my opinion, the good one was definitely Michael Clark Duncan, who was like the big brute of the ape.
Yeah, that was the Tim Burton one, right? Because Burton did the one with Mark Wahlberg that didn't really take off as much as they thought it was going to. I remember seeing that in the theater and going, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what this was supposed to accomplish.
Right, and then like I said, then they went backwards with it because you saw the entirety of the Ape Planet and Mark Wahlberg come in and basically playing his role as Charles Heston and everything like that. And then 2 movies down, you see the one guy from the original Spider-Man series, the bad guy or whatever, who was trying to, engineer the ape and everything like that. It's like, oh, he was the first one. It's like, the timeline is that of King Kong and that, because what they're doing now with Godzilla and everything else.
So appreciate the phone call there, EJ. That's Irvy Jr. there. Yeah, Planet of the Apes is one of the ones. Also on this list, the strangest movies ever, they have Soylent Green, which was People, of course, People. They put Monty Python and the Holy Grail on here, which I don't think is a strange movie. I just think it's funny, but it is a little out there.
I think Meaning of Life is more unusual than Holy Grail.
Here's one I've never seen, All That Jazz from 1979.
Oh, yeah.
They put on here. I'm not quite sure about that. They put The Shining on there as well.
The Shining is an acquired taste.
Yeah. The Dark Crystal from 1982.
Sure. Yeah,
that's
choice.
A movie that I loved as a kid, and I tried to show that to my wife one time, and you want to talk about what the hell am I watching? She turned to me about 20 minutes in the movie and goes, what is this?
Yeah.
It's like Jim Henson's Fever Dream.
Yeah. You realize how bananas his brain was.
Yes.
And for good and bad. I mean, when he just went off, he went off.
Yeah.
And it was good. Remember, do you ever watch Being John Malkovich?
Yes.
It takes place in his head.
Yes.
Get out of my head.
Jacob's Ladder they put on this list. I've never heard of Tammy and the T-Rex, but that's one from 1994. Looking at some other ones. Mulholland Drive makes the list.
Yeah.
They also have The Lobster from 2015, which is like a romantic comedy where if you're single, have you heard the concept of this one? If you're single and you don't find a mate by a certain time, it's the same guy who made Poor Things.
Okay.
Is the director of this. And basically, if you have to find a partner by a certain time, and if not, you get turned into an animal for the rest of your life.
Wow.
So there's a lot of pressure on you to be able to do that.
So it's kind of a Logan's Run, except you got to be married, which Logan's Run is a bizarre movie.
Yeah, that should be on there as well. So that one did not make the list. Another one from 2017 with Jennifer Lawrence, the movie Mother, where the house ends up being alive and everything else.
I remember that one.
Yeah. So if you want something weird, any of the ones we mentioned this weekend, just put in the background, I guess.
Yeah, I enjoy difficult movies. I enjoy movies that it's like I've got to focus and think about what's going on here. That kind of test my brain a little bit.
I do at times, but at the end of the day, I watched the Citizen Kane of action movies last week. John Wick 4. That thing is just, if you want nothing but it runs almost 3 hours. And about 2.5 of it is action.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want nothing but guys just laying waste to somebody, John Wick 4 is where it's at.
And you mentioned The Shining, and I mean, really, any Stanley Kubrick film is going to challenge your brain. One of my favorite movies is 2001. I love that movie, and that's one that you either really, really love it, or you really, really hate it, or you just completely have no interest in it at all. I mean, it's a
shameless plug. Speaking of Kubrick, if you missed it, Malcolm McDowell had a chance to talk with him last week, and really interesting stuff about Clockwork Orange, because that is one movie for me, who I don't mind violence in movies, I don't mind dark humor, I had to stop.
It's a troubling movie.
I had to stop that movie and just take a good half-hour break of just walk it off before I finally finished it.
And the thing that's crazy is the book is worse. That's what's crazy.
Yeah.
As intense and ugly as the movie is, the book is worse.
And I just found it fascinating that he in that interview, if you missed it, you can find it at the Mike Wimmacher Show where you find your podcasts. Once again, shameless plug.
Yeah.
But he had to just drive away from people,
I'm sure.
hours away, and just for a month, just not be around people after that film. So, interesting conversation and a very interesting list. We'll take a break. When we come back, in 2003, Chile finally got the rights to air the original Star Wars trilogy on television. They didn't want to interrupt it with commercials, so they came up with a brilliant idea.
This may run too fascinating.
I found this fascinating. This is a thank you to Doc Noise, who used to be on these airways. It's Mike and Molson with you here on WMAY this Friday, March 8th. Back in 2003, Chile finally got the rights to air on their television, on their, national television, the original Star Wars trilogy. So episode 4, 5, and 6. They didn't want to stop, because those are lengthier movies, right? They didn't want to stop to put commercial breaks in. So instead, what they decided to do was to splice in product placement and commercials within the actual playing of the movie. And with the intent of making it look like it was part of the movie. Correct. So not just, Yeah, it wasn't just like a random commercial break in there out of nowhere. It was, they would cut it. We'll go through it kind of like a breakdown of it. But I have 3 separate different clips here. Okay. 2 of which have the English on there. They haven't had the overdub. 1 has the overdub of the actual language from Chile. So here's what it was. This is from episode 4, New Hope. It's where the scene where Ben Kenobi has just rescued Luke Skywalker and is telling Luke Skywalker about his father and is about to present Luke Skywalker with his dad's old lightsaber. But before that, a quick commercial interlude.
You fought in the Clone Wars? Yes. I was once a Jedi Knight, the same as your father.
So he, telling him about his dad.
I wish I'd known him. He was the best star pilot in the galaxy.
Very emotional scene.
Warrior. I understand you've become quite a good pilot yourself.
Yeah. Wait for it.
And he was a good friend. Which
Here we go.
Me.
Ready?
I have something here for you. Your father wanted you to have this when you were old enough.
Now, what he opens in the movie is the case that has Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber. What he's opening right now, what you're seeing on the screen, if you were here in the studio with us, is he just opened a cooler of beer that the dad wanted him to have when he's old enough, and now the beer commercial will fully go to 10. Cerveza Cristal. So Ben Kenobi just grabbed an ice-cold Cerveza Cristal.
Right, instead of a lightsaber.
To present to Luke Skywalker.
And I got to give him credit.
It's actually pretty well done.
The edit is pretty seamless if you don't know what's happening.
Correct.
It does look like it's in the movie.
Yes. It's
ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Next up, it's the part in episode 4 where Ben Kenobi is trying to bring the tractor beam down. So he's hanging out there on that pillar, right? He's pulling that lever to knock out the force field that is surrounding the Death Star. But he also needs to take a quick interlude for a Cerveza Cristal.
That's so funny.
If it will play here. Good old computer. It's fun stuff. Come on.
Jeez.
Yeah, good Lord.
Can we get the guy from the Lincoln Day dinner back?
It's more exciting than this. You know what? Eject. We'll go to a different one here. We're going to the this one actually was with the language of Chile, where it's the Emperor.
Te lo aseguro, estamos a salvo de tus amigos aquí.
So the Emperor is basically telling Luke Skywalker all his friends are going to die.
Right.
Su debilidad es su exceso de confianza.
Tu fe.
And he's got the lightsaber in his hand, right, that he's just taken away from Luke. And because of all this, you see him, he's about to put the lightsaber down, right? But instead, he summons with the Force. I think you know what's coming.
Right. Yeah, this is worth looking up. If you
Yes, look it up if you have not before. It's like in all these big scenes, out of nowhere is Cerveza Cristal.
Right.
Out of nowhere, the official beer of a galaxy far, far away.
And just watch it and appreciate the
they do
lengths,
it
lengths they
seamlessly.
went to make it look like it was part of the movie. And it couldn't be. It would be less disruptive to just go to commercial.
It
it's
takes
so
you
disruptive.
It takes you out. It's well done. To your point, it's not just like jump cut, here it is. They do a great job of splicing it in, but to your point, they would have been better served to just gone to a Cerveza Cristal commercial.
Fade to black and go to a commercial.
Exactly. Instead of putting that, look it up for yourself. You can find the article via IGN. This was in 2003 that they were able to do it. So I give them flowers for the great edits. But maybe next time, just cut to commercial.
Watch Star Wars uninterrupted.
What other movies, though, should we put those in?
Oh, my gosh.
Should you just randomly splice in kind of edits like that?
Like Schindler's List or something where...
He goes for a nice Riesling out of nowhere or something like that. Or Coors Light or something like the Silver Bullet comes in.
Yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon or something.
I think the more... I think you're onto something. The more it is so serious, the better it would be with a spliced in commercial. Like the movie Lincoln. All of a sudden, Daniel Day-Lewis all of a sudden then grabs for a Miller Lite out of nowhere. Something along those lines.
Like the scene in The Godfather when he's at the fruit stand or something. Instead, he's cracking open a Pepsi.
I think instead of rolling over and seeing a horse head, there's a keg of Bud Light. It's like time to party, man.
Bud Light.
Yeah,
I'm a Miller person.
So let's see what we can do with that over the weekend. Sounds like a pep band trying to pep up there.
Oh, I'm pepped.
I am pepped. Hope you're pepped for the weekend as well. It's Mike and Molson with you here on WMAY. Don't forget, Mike and Molson Too Good for Radio podcast. New episode will be coming out.
Love it.
I almost said drop. It'll be coming out later on today. Make sure you find it wherever you find your podcast. Like, share, and subscribe. And what we've just done for the past couple hours will be a bonus podcast next week. We end today's show with a couple of women who went full weekend at Bernie's.
This is incredible to me.
Yes. So you never go full weekend at Bernie's, but these two women did. There are a couple of women from Ohio who propped up a man's corpse in their vehicle and withdrew money from the dead man's bank account for then dropping the 80-year-old body off at a hospital emergency room.
Wow.
Yeah, they were not related to the dead man, Douglas Lehman, but live with him at his home, which is kind of odd. Not related, but live with him at his home.
Yeah.
The women, with the help of a third individual...
You can turn this music off, Mike.
Okay.
I think we've heard plenty of that.
I want to get pumped up more, though, Johnny.
I think we've...
Ready?
I think the song has made its point, whatever its point is.
I'm not quite sure. It insists upon itself. That's what it does. So the women, with the help of a third individual, removed his corpse from the residence and placed the body in the front passenger seat of his car and then headed to a nearby bank drive-through window.
You got to touch dead things just to make a couple extra bucks?
Well, did he go to the bank that regularly that they would need him to be in the car to make the withdrawal from the drive-through window?
I don't know. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm still trying to figure out how this works.
Yeah. The bank had previously allowed the woman to draw money from Lehman's account as long as he was accompanying them. Okay, so they've already gone there. Since they're not related to him, as long as he was with them, they could go and get money out of his account if he was there.
Right.
This time, a teller apparently was unaware that Lehman was dead when the woman pulled up and successfully took out $900. So think about, they go through all of this for $900.
Did the teller talk through the microphone and say, "Sir, do we have your approval?" And they made his head nod or something? Or?
I'm assuming so.
Wow.
They say the woman placed Lehman in the vehicle in such a manner that he would be visible to the bank staff in order to make the withdrawal. In my mind, I'm assuming the third individual was laying down on the floor in the back seat, right? And they were just like, you got to wave. And he would lift his arm. Like, he was a giant marionette. Poor Mr. Lehman in this particular instance.
Well, I'm hoping they have him in the back seat with his arm on the window, like doing a gangster lean. You know,
well, he's in the front. The dead man's in the front seat.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But I'm wanting him to like lean in and like wave and everything. The way they had to manipulate him, like at Weekend at Bernie's.
Bernie here would like a lollipop, please.
Yeah, exactly. Send one out there that way too. But that's a lot to go through for $900.
It really
isn't
is.
it?
And handling a dead person.
You're touching a dead body. And how do they get him? I'm assuming the car was in the garage, right? Because I don't imagine there was any point where they had to get in public and carry the dead body and its lifeless corpse to throw it in the front seat. That had to be done in a garage before they took off.
I mean, unless one of them got into the back part of his pajamas with him and made his feet move.
That's what I want. Bless you. That's what I wanted to have happen as well.
Yeah.
The woman placed him in the vehicle in such a manner he'd be visible to the staff in order to make the withdrawal.
Okay.
They then, once they got the $900, they're like, yeah, we got this windfall. They then drove to the Ashtabula County Medical Center, where they dropped off his body and departed without providing any information about the man or themselves. Just rolled up and be like, here you go, I'm done with it now. Police subsequently identified the duo and questioned them about the incident. Prosecutors this week charged them with theft and gross abuse of a corpse.
Man, they did not think that out to the end, right? So you go to the bank, you're obviously on camera, and then later in the day, this body shows up.
No, they just, after the bank, they already have him in the car, they just dump his body
That's
out.
what I mean. So later in the day, the body just gets dumped, and so they connect the dots and go, well, where was this person before? Oh, he was at the bank.
I assume they rolled him out like into the emergency room area with some type of wheelchair, and then just kind of dumped him off there, and then, I don't know what happened. You killed him.
I thought maybe the car just slowed down enough.
And they just kicked him, and he just,
out the door.
And he just kind of rolled out there. Hi, you're on WMAY.
What's up, fellas?
What's going on?
So there was three of them, all right? So $900 divided by three, that's $300 a piece to touch an old dead dude.
No.
That's just not. It seems like it's not. It should be worth more than
a lot of work.
Yeah, that's
they should have taken out more.
Yeah, that's a bad use of the investment. Maybe you only had $900 in the account, but you're right. That is just a bad use of your time. It's a bad investment to try to touch a dead body and all that lifting and everything else just to get $300 a piece. That's just too much time and effort wasted.
Yeah, I mean, they should have taken him to the horse track or something and try to parlay that.
Yeah, if you're going to go full weekend at Bernie's, you don't just make one stop.
Yeah.
You got to go full weekend at Bernie's.
And
you half-assed it.
Yeah.
For $300 a person. You got to go full, like, they made 2 Weekend at Bernie's movies.
That's right.
Do your homework. By the way, how did they make... I watched both as a kid growing up.
I didn't see the second one.
But few did.
Yeah.
That's why there wasn't a third in the trilogy. But it's like, the guy's dead. How is he still alive in 2? Well, not alive, but how is his corpse not rotted by number 2? It's like, come on now. Get with the program here on that. But that's a lot of effort just to...
It's impressive.
Get $900.
It's impressive.
How much would they have to pay you to touch a dead body and pick it up and throw it in a car?
No. I mean, yeah. And, and it's one of those things where it's, I mean, literally dead weight. So you try to lift the person.
Yeah, he's not helping you
at
up.
all. And
in my mind, I wanted him to have an ice cream cone in his hand when they drive through the teller.
I mean, I wanted like an arm to snap off or... at some point the decay just starts
coming in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one of the things Weekend at Bernie's did not teach you about how quickly a body will decay. You
hear these stories sometimes too of people who keep a body in their house so they can keep getting Social Security checks or something, and they don't deny that they're dead. I mean, it's just, again, it's
a lot of candles you're lighting.
I don't think people understand what happens when people die.
If you don't take care of it quickly and get it, embalmed and whatnot, it's
like a moldy banana. It just keeps getting worse.
Yeah, it's not pretty. It's not going to get any better. Johnny, always a pleasure, my friend. Do you want to remind people to spring forward this weekend?
Oh, that's right. Are we going to get mad about that this weekend?
Oh, God, everyone gets mad about everything.
My system is all off, and I don't know what to do, and I'm late for work, and I'm early for work, and I don't want to go to church tomorrow.
And everybody on somebody on Sunday is going to be like, well, I would have been here on time, but this damn springing forward crap.
And then, people are still using the excuse like next Thursday. It's like, okay, you know what? I give you a day of being a little whacked out, but
if we do it over a weekend, right? It's a late Saturday night, so you have a whole day to get accustomed to it.
You'll be fine.
Yes.
You'll be fine. It's not that much of an inconvenience.
I'm only bringing it up, though, to make sure that for the 6 o'clock hour on Monday, it'll be dead air.
Yeah.
Because I'll be like, oh, no, I didn't realize. I forgot to spring ahead. That's totally on my fault. I apologize. So have a good weekend. Remind yourself just tomorrow night before you go to bed, spring forward, and you'll be fine.